your story is just incredible in itself. And shout out to everybody in Mount Vernon. So obviously the MBA, civil rights attorney, now running for district attorney. I know most people, when they hear district attorney, they have no clue as to what that position holds and the duties that fall under it. So can you explain to the people exactly what the role is as a district attorney?
Certainly, and I think you're right. Most people have no clue what the district attorney does. In other states, it's the state prosecutor. But the district attorney is the top law enforcement officer in the county and solely responsible for deciding who gets charged with crimes, what crimes they get charged with, and when there are plea deals, what is going to be the recommended sentence. If there's going to be bail requested, it's the district attorney's office that makes the recommendation for bail. And so just in a historical context for Black and brown communities where they are unfortunately the individuals who largely are disproportionately treated unfairly when they find themselves in the justice system, to have somebody now sitting in that seat that one has been exactly where you've been, unlike anybody else that's ran for this office, certainly in this county. And I haven't been able to fact check this, but I think that because I like to speak positively, when we're successful, that I'll probably be the first chief prosecutor in the nation that's been formally justice involved. So think about having somebody that has lived what you are living in this moment, being at the helm and making decisions. So it is not something where I'm just looking to throw you away because I've been where you are. So being in a position where I can now bring into the office other Black and brown people who are coming from the communities that are the most policed and that are going to have cultural awareness and understanding of what it is like to feel that in often circumstances, damn, you don't have a lot of options. You're lacking educational opportunities often. You're lacking financial opportunities. You may come from a broken home and make decisions in the moment, whether it's joining a gang because you're looking for family, selling drugs because you feel like that's the only way you can provide for yourself and your family or your children. So all of these things that many of the district attorneys, whether it's Westchester or anywhere else in the country, are certainly oblivious to. They see these individuals as, okay, this is the law. That person broke the law, get rid of them. What's our conviction rate? And they're oftentimes looking at, well, what's next? After they run for DA, are they going to follow the pathway of, for instance, the vice president and then go on to be attorney general, trying to be a senator? They're looking forward. Where for me, I really think that this position is the next fight in the civil rights war. At the end of the day, if we can get a justice system that is equitable while not sacrificing safety, that's going to go a long way to making sure that everybody that comes in touch with the justice system in this county has their constitutional promise upheld. I think bigger than that, was sort of not spoken about from the district attorney's office, is if you're tasking them with making sure that they keep people safe. We all know the way that we reduce crime is addressing the drivers of crime. The drivers of crime are all of the social issues that you'll hear many people talking about, generally legislators or individuals that are running for mayors or running to be county executive, or even the president talking about, well, how do we get programming to the children? How do we deal with the opioid crisis? How do we deal with people that are drug addicted or have mental health issues? But they're usually looking at these issues as social service issues and not looking at them as public safety issues. So one of the things that I've been consistently saying while I'm on the campaign trail is, if you're telling me that you want me to keep you safe, then let's stop ignoring the evidence that's already available. Whether it's Vera Institute, John Jay, or you think of the think tanks that have dedicated millions, if not billions of dollars to invest in how do we reduce crime, how do we reduce the rates of recidivism, all of them consistently say you have to reinvest and invest significantly in underserved communities and give people opportunities. What's also not talked about is in the long term, there's an opportunity for tax savings. Because if instead of paying to incarcerate individuals, you're helping invest in them in the early phases of their lives, they now become self-sustaining adults that are contributing to the tax base. We're wasting so much money incarcerating people. And again, you guys are always talking about fiscal responsibility. It is wholly fiscally irresponsible the way that we go about handling money and wasting it on incarcerating instead of educating.
As DA, how do you propose to fix the issue that you just talked about when there's also a financial incentive for some institutions to keep us locked up? And then on the policing side, what can you do to keep the police force accountable to make citizens feel safer as well?
Well, I could tell you that the financial incentive is very real, and you have prisons that are making many people extremely wealthy. I think that what's necessary is that any district attorney is actually advocating for best practices and at the table with the legislative and executive branch having these conversations. It's one thing for social scientists to say we should be doing something different. It's something for academics to say we should be doing something different. But if you take all of the white papers that presently exist and you take John Jay, you take Vera Institute off of that, and you put the seal of the district attorney's office, and it's the district attorneys that is saying to the electorate, hey, if you guys want to be safe, tell the people that you've elected to put the financing and the money behind these programs. You're telling the people that you've elected as your executive that you need to be intentional about the youth programs that you're putting in the community. You need to be intentional about the mental health services that you're making available. You need to be intentional about the drug rehabilitation programs. And let's stop fooling ourselves. A lot of the problem is most of the electeds are only thinking about re-election. And in doing that, they're not really trying to solve problems. They're trying to give the veneer of fixing it just so that they can get reelected, instead of being honest and say, look, we're dealing with generational problems. Generational problems don't get solved in one election cycle. They don't get solved in 2 election cycles. So instead of treating the electorate like they're children and that they can't handle the truth, you don't have to tell them that there's Santa Claus or tell them these fictitious stories. Be honest. This is going to take us about 10 to 15 years. However, here's a plan. And we can put before you measurables where you can track the progress. Either we're doing what we need to be doing, or we realize that the pathway that we are charting is not working, and then we can redirect ourselves. So I think that it is having people in the position as district attorney advocating more instead of just operating in the ivory tower where all they're focusing on is what's the conviction rate and how quickly we can clear the calendar, and start looking globally and being serious about safety and not just looking at conviction rates. The issue as it relates to, and the second part with the police, the way you have to hold the police accountable is a couple of things. I think one, the model in which police are disciplined right now is currently broken. I'm currently special prosecutor for police discipline for the city of Mount Vernon, meaning that where historically you would have labor lawyers that would treat this as just a dispute between management and an employee. And the labor lawyers were often, and I'll say it, in bed with or having a very cozy relationship with the police union. So police were never really disciplined. And it wasn't the legislators that was going to do anything, or the mayors or town supervisors were not really willing to push the button because of the strength of the police union. So contrast that with what happened in the city of Mount Vernon, and shout out to Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, who had the foresight to bring in a civil rights attorney to handle these cases, knowing that this is somebody that's from the community, somebody that has credibility for holding police accountable in the civil rights context, that if this person is responsible for prosecuting them, filing disciplinary charges against them, that is going to give the community something that they could actually believe in and say, okay, well, if Wagstaff said that this officer deserves to be suspended for 2 months and not terminated, they'll find that that's a credible outcome, because they know that if, based on my work, I've represented Black Lives Matter, I've represented individuals who've been killed by the police, that if I'm saying that this officer only deserves 2 months, that is something they could actually rely on and not think that the fix is in. So having, and again, thinking about the context of local elections mattering, having a mayor or a supervisor that is going to have the courage against the pushback of the PBA to say, no, I'm going to bring somebody in that's actually going to clean this department up and hold these officers accountable. Bigger than that, I don't think that it should be internal affairs that is actually disciplining police officers or doing the investigations. I've long said that there should be an independently elected inspector general and then have branches of the Inspector General's office the same way you have branches of the District Attorney's office, and let the Inspector General have a singular focus to hold police accountable, hold politicians accountable. So this way you can take any of the relational interference out of it, because at the end of the day, if you have somebody that is in internal affairs, that is a brother or sister officer, despite the best of their intentions, there's going to be an internal bias. But that's something that takes legislation to do that. I think additionally, police should be a licensed profession. You gentlemen talk about finance, you talk about real estate. Can you explain to me how it makes sense that you need a license to sell a house, but you don't need a license to be a police officer, to carry a gun, to make constitutional decisions and lock somebody up? There's no way that you should just be allowed to do that just from going to the police academy for 6 months, or because this is the family business. And these are all things that need to be legislated. I think another piece, the insurance companies would love it, because one of the other things, if you made them licensed professionals, no different than an attorney, or even look at the medical field, make them have their own individual policies. Why should the taxpayers' money go to pay for the malfeasance of bad police officers or bad actors? Make each individual officer have their own individual policy, no different than we do with our car. And that'll keep, in my mind, it'll keep them in line. You may never change their hearts, but you can always change their minds. And most people's mind focuses on their money. If I know that if I get too many claims against me, the carrier is going to drop me. And if I don't have my insurance, I can't remain licensed and I lose my pension. That will make you think twice before there's another George Floyd, more than having people marching and telling you that you're violating people's constitutional rights is wrong. Everybody should be treated equally. That conversation so far has not gotten us where we need to be. So we need to be more strategic and start looking at ways to financially incentivize officers to do the right thing and hold them accountable.